Good morning, everyone. This is Father Nate, missionary priest in Italy, and thanks for joining us today, October 19th, on No Greater Delight, our podcast on Marian feast and Marian meditations. Well, to start us off, we have the Abbot Orsini, who reminds us that they celebrate the dedication of the Abbey of Royaumont under the title of the Holy Cross and Our Lady. This was done by John, Archbishop of Mytilene, in the year 1235. And we're told that the monastery had been founded by St. Louis in 1227. Likewise, speaking of foundations, they celebrate Mary in Albugnano in Asti because they're celebrating the foundation of the Carolingian Abbey in Vezzolano, which goes back to almost to the 11th century, right? And the reason why it's dedicated to Our Lady, but above the main altar, there's a terracotta triptych, which with the central image has a beautiful Our Lady with the child Jesus. This image is very venerated and considered to be miraculous. If you go all the way to New Zealand, in Paraparaumu, in Kapiti Coast in New Zealand, they celebrate Our Lady of Lourdes. This monumental statue was blessed on this day in 1958. Likewise, they celebrate Our Lady of Divine Providence, Madre della Divina Provvidenza, in San Gimignano, in Siena, Tuscany, Italy. We're told that departed German forces destroyed this church, which was built in 1670, but when they fled in 1944, they destroyed it. However, a painting that goes back to the 1400s was left intact, and so the rebuilt church was reconsecrated today, October 19th, in 1949. Also, we have a very important feast. They celebrate in Valverde de la Virgen, León, Castilla and León in Spain, where they celebrate La Virgen del Camino, which would be like Our Lady of the Path, because it's on the path to the Camino de Santiago, the road that leads to Compostela. So the story goes back to 1505. It was July 2nd, and while watching his sheep, Avelar Simon Fernandez saw Our Lady, radiant with light. And she said, "Go to the city. Tell the bishop to come to this place and install in a decent place this image my son wishes to appear here for the good of this land." So the shepherd said, "Yeah, lady, how will they believe that it was you who sent me?" So Our Lady asked for his slingshot, and with it she launched a small stone, saying, "When the bishop sees this stone, it will be so large that he will know that I have sent you. And where you find the stone is where my son and I want you to put the image." And lo and behold, that's what they did, right? So the miraculously located shrine is found outside of the city of León on the Camino of Santiago, like we said, which is why she's called La Virgen del Camino, the Lady of the Road, or the pilgrimage path. The Virgen del Camino was declared the patroness of the León region in 1914. The statue itself is a 33-inch tall wooden Pietà, which the basilica says dates back to 1514. The coronation of that image was authorized by Benedict XI, authorized in 1917, and it was finally carried out on October 19th, 1930. The large modern sanctuary was completed in 1961, and it houses the statue in its retablo of the 1700s, right? The Virgin of the Road is honored on September 15th, the Feast of Our Lady of Sorrows. So again, it was today in 1930 that this image was solemnly crowned. And that's what we're celebrating in the Marian world today, October 19th. For today's reading from True Devotion to the Blessed Virgin Mary by St. Louis de Montfort. Again, we're actually finishing this introduction to part 2, which is on the most excellent devotion to our Blessed Lady, this perfect consecration to Jesus through Mary. And again, we're just rounding up these preliminary observations on the different ways of honoring Our Lady. So first, St. Louis de Montfort gave us a list of interior practices, then a list of exterior practices, and today, in point 117, he's going to give us a couple important points. He's got another list, right? So 117. There are a quantity of other practices of true devotion towards the Blessed Virgin, which the Holy Ghost has inspired into saintly souls, and which are very sanctifying. They can be read at length in the Paradise Opened of Father Barry, the Jesuit, where he has collected a great number of devotions which the saints have practiced in honor of Our Lady. Devotions which serve marvelously to sanctify souls, provided they are performed as they ought to be. That is to say, and here we have the last list that he gives us. First, with a good and pure intention to please God only, to unite ourselves to Jesus Christ as to our last end, and to edify our neighbor. So again, he says, okay, what does it mean to practice these devotions as they ought? First, our intention is good, right? I just wanted to be united to Jesus Christ and to edify my neighbor, right? I don't care if, people are looking at me and being like, oh, what a good holy person, right? Yeah, that's not the point, right? Or if I do it to, appear holier than my siblings or whatever, that's not why you want to do these things. Second, with attention and without voluntary distraction, right? Distractions always come, but if they're voluntary, it means we give in to them and we're like, okay, I'm gonna not pay attention. I don't want to, or I didn't take the care before I started praying to make sure that I was focused on what needed to happen. 3, with devotion, equally avoiding precipitation or negligence, right? So you don't go too fast, or you just don't forget it. Like you do it, but you want to do it, right? And 4th, with modesty and a respectful and edifying care of the postures of the body, right? So probably you're not laying on the ground, or scratching your belly the whole time. No, you're paying attention even with your body as that means of prayer. Point 118, but after all, I loudly protest that having read nearly all the books which profess to treat of devotions to Our Lady, and having conversed familiarly and holily with the best and wisest of men of these latter times, I have never known nor heard of any practice of devotion towards her at all equal to the one which I wish now to unfold. Exacting from the soul as it does more sacrifices for God, emptying the soul more and more of itself and of its self-love, keeping it more faithfully in grace, and grace more faithfully in it, uniting it more perfectly and more easily to Jesus Christ, and finally being more glorious to God, more sanctifying to the soul, and more useful to our neighbor than any other of the devotions to her. That's a pretty high claim there, right? St. Louis de Montfort is convinced. He says, I've read everything. I've talked with people. He said, but I know of nothing better than this devotion, this consecration to Jesus through Mary. And then 119, which is the last point in this sort of introductory point that he's giving in this part 2. He says, as the essential of this devotion consists in the interior which it ought to form, it will not be equally comprehended by everyone. Some will stop at what is exterior in it, and will go no further, and these will be the greatest number. Some, in small number, will enter into its inward spirit, but they will only mount but one step. Who will mount to the third step? Who will get as far as the third? Lastly, who will so advance as to make this devotion his habitual state? He alone, to whom the Spirit of Jesus Christ shall have revealed the secret, the faultlessly faithful soul, whom he shall conduct there himself, to advance from virtue to virtue, from grace to grace, from light to light, until he arrives at the transformation of himself into Jesus Christ, and to the plenitude of his age on earth, and of his glory in heaven. So again, he says, a lot of people, it preeminently, this devotion is interior. It consists like in our inner conformity with Jesus Christ. How many people are going to reach that? He says, well, a lot of people will do the exterior action, right? You profess you write out that you profess I love Jesus and I consecrate myself to Mary to give myself to Jesus. He's like, but there's more than that. We have to continue. We have to keep going. Not to just stop like when we're okay or like, okay, yeah, that was nice, but actually to continue growing in our love for Jesus through our love for Mary.
Thank you for listening, and we hope you enjoyed our Marian podcast. As St. John Paul II teaches us, from Mary we learn to love Christ her Son, the Son of God. Through her intercession, may we grow ever closer to Him. We encourage you to share this with a loved one or friend and help spread our devotion to Mary. Thank you, and God bless.